Welcome to the video for 7.3 activity. We're actually going to kind of be doing a little bit of notes with it because you should have watched your video, and on the notes, on your chapter notes, there is a section to fill in for the video. So let's double check and make sure you have that right. Pause this if you don't have your notes and get them out. Okay, on your notes you should have noted that two ways to classify triangles. You can classify them by their sides or by their angles. So the angle classifications, which you should already know, is you could have an acute triangle. You can have a right triangle, which has one right angle, or you can have an obtuse triangle, which has one obtuse angle. Now the side classifications, you can have an equilateral triangle, which means that all the angles are equal. You can have an isosceles triangle, which means that two of the sides are the same, or you can have scalene, which means that none of them are the same. You should have filled this chart out from the video. If you didn't, I want you to take time to do that really quickly. So if it's acute and scalene, all of the angles are less than 90 degrees and none of them are the same size. Isosceles and acute means that you've got two that are the same and you mark them the same with little lines. And equilateral, there's just one special triangle where all the angles are equal and all the sides are equal. So mark the sides equal, and then these little curves mark the angles equal. A right scalene would be something that has a right angle, but none of the sides are the same size. A right isosceles would be a right angle, and these two sides would be the same. And let's mark these as right angles. And then you cannot have a right equilateral triangle. You can't have all three sides the same. For obtuse scalene means you've got one obtuse angle and none of your other sides are equal. And obtuse isosceles means you've got an obtuse angle and two of the sides are equal, and it's going to be these two. And you cannot have an equilateral triangle that's obtuse. Now on the bottom of your notes, right under that chart, it says all three angles of a triangle add up to, and there's a blank. And then it says 360, that's a typo. You'll cross that out and put 180 degrees. Okay, you can go ahead and go away from your notes, and now you need the orange paper. It's a salmon color that says 7.3 activity page. Pause this and get that page out. Okay, for this page, you don't need to write anything yet. I want you to watch. We're going to talk about how to create triangles. Notice these straws. I've got a 2 centimeter straw, 4 centimeter, 6, and 7. And the question is, can you make a triangle with any three lines? And we're going to look at that. So here I need blue, green, and purple. So if I take a purple line and a blue line and a green line, just looking at those, do you think you can make a triangle with them? And the answer is yes. You can connect those and make a triangle. This one says red, green, and purple. So if I take my purple line and my green line, and this time I'm going to take a red line, and just looking at these, do these look like they could make a triangle? And if we were to connect the ends, indeed it would create a triangle. So now I want to look at the red, blue, and purple. So we'll take our purple again, and this time we're going to do a blue, and we're going to do a red. And I want you to look at this one really closely. Do you think I can create a triangle with those? If I were to connect the ends, they're not going to reach. So I can't create a triangle. Now just remembering the links, this one was 7, this was 2, and this was 4. Well, 2 plus 4 is 6. So if the two smaller ones aren't long enough, it won't make a triangle. It has to be longer than the bottom one. Let's look at one last one. What if I do red, blue, and green? So green's going to be my longest one. And I've got a blue, and I've got a red. Now let's just think about these links for a minute. The green one is 6, the blue is 4, and the red is 2. Well, 2 plus 4 is 6. So I actually have two lines that are the same length. When I connect the endpoints, then as you take these two ends and bring them down, they're not going to actually touch until they're right on top of that line. So if they're exactly the same length, in other words, if the two smaller ones, which are 4 and 2, add up to the bigger one, it's not going to work. The two smaller ones have to add up to more than the bigger one. So this one is also not possible. So just getting you thinking about how to make triangles. Now we're going to look at your paper, and we're going to identify some triangles. So going back to your table that you made of acute, right, and obtuse triangles and scalene, isosceles, and equilateral, let's go to this page. The first one, it says to classify the triangle. So first of all, look at the angles. Is it acute, right, or obtuse? You should say right because there's a right angle. And then you look at the sides. Is it equilateral, scalene, or isosceles? And these two marks right here, these little lines, those mean that those two are the same. So they would be isosceles. So number 1 would be right and isosceles. I want you to pause this and I want you to fill out numbers 2, 3, and 4. And then start it again when you're done. Number 2 you should have said was right and scalene. None of the sides are the same. Number 3, you should have said acute because none of them are over 100 or over 90 degrees. And you should have said isosceles because these two are the same. Now we can find these two angles down here because all of them add up to 180 as we've talked about. And so 180 minus 50 gives you 130. So these two together have to be 130 and they're both the same size. So you just cut 130 in half and they're both 65. So they indeed are all acute. And number 4 you should have said it was obtuse and isosceles. Now there's only one obtuse angle and there's 2 acute angles. Anytime one of them is obtuse, the whole thing's obtuse. Just think of it as obtuse being the dominant gene. If one of them's obtuse, it's all obtuse. All right, number 5, I want you to actually draw a triangle. So I'm going to remind you how to draw triangles. The first step is to draw an angle. So step number 1 on your paper, and if there's not enough room on this side, you can turn it over to the back. I want you to draw a line. So take the bottom of your protractor and draw a line, just like I have, and then put a dot on one end. And you need to line your protractor up with that dot. And then follow the line, and over on the side, notice I've got big numbers and I've got small numbers. I'm going to start with my small numbers, and it says to go up to 28. So 28, here's 20, here's 30, so 28 is just 2 before it. Once you have those 2 points, you're going to go ahead and draw a straight line to them. So go ahead and take your protractor and draw the edges and create your, I'm going to connect these lines, and you're going to have your first angle. And here's mine. I've got 28 degrees. Now we need to do another angle. So I've done 28. Let's do 42. And what you're going to do is come over to the other side and put a dot. And then you're going to move your protractor over to that. Now this time, I'm going to come way over here to the left, this side over here, to start because my line is that way. So I'm going to start with 0 here. And I need to go up to 42. And here's 42. So once you have your dot, you can connect those. And this is 42 degrees. And you don't actually even have to draw the third angle because it is already made. So there's actually, this one they did 110 first. I did 42. If I wanted to do 110, I could have come over, and instead of going to 42, I could have come all the way to 110 and connected these points. Either way, I've got one that's 42 and one that's 110. All right. And then I can just erase all my lines. You don't need to erase yours. So I want you to try numbers 5 and 6. Pause it and then come back and see how you did. Here's my 67 degree angle. Then I did a 15 degree angle because the 98 made it too big. So there's number 6. And then number 7, here's my 31 degree angle. Then I did a right angle. If you did them in a different order, that's totally fine. And the last one says, what type of triangle must the hanger be to hang the clothing? Well, is it acute, obtuse, or right? There's one obtuse angle, so we would say that it is obtuse and isosceles because there are 2 that's the same. And let's talk about that. If these 2 angles are the same, it means these 2 sides are going to be the same. That's the rule of isosceles. You're now done with this activity, and you can go ahead and turn this in and move on to your next assignment.